On September 17, 2011, 5,000 Americans descended onto the financial district of Manhattan. Walking laps around the area, the group set up a protest camp in Zuccotti Park. Termed as Occupy Wall Street, their message was clear. We are the 99% that will no longer tolerate the greed and the corruption of the 1%. In David Harvey's The Right to the City, he believes that Henri Lefebvre was right to insist that the revolution has to be urban, in the broadest sense of that term, or nothing at all. However, do we truly have this right for an urban revolution? The term to protect and serve has been commonly adopted by many police forces in the United States and is globally recognised. But do these forces come to represent this slogan? These images bring into question the ability to protest in urban areas, denying the rights to the city that Harvey draws upon.
Chicago 10 is an animated documentary depicting the trial of a group accused of conspiracy and incitement for their roles in the protest at the 1968 National Democratic Convention in Chicago. Released in 2007 and directed by Brett Morgan, the film uses a blend of archival footage and animation to present the protest. Reintroducing these images in the 21st century, Morgan reconstructs the court's transcript, highlighting the comic-like nature of the trial.
It will serve as commentary on the circus-like nature of the proceedings.
In a review of the film, Jim Emerson wrote that we see how the confrontation between police and protesters at the 1968 Democratic National Convention played out as political theatre. Morgan, however, framed this conflict through a lens of the early 21st century.
A lot of what was happening in our country politically is sort of, I think, seeped into my conscious.
A more immediate response to the Democratic Convention protest was the 1971 film Punishment Park, directed by Peter Watkins. The film draws upon the aftermath of the protest and displays a dystopian, alternate history in which the police and military forces actively kill protesters. The film parallels certain images that came out of the Chicago protests and trials. Chicago 10 comes to represent the image of brutal police actions and the authority that they hold.
A democratic convention is about to begin in a police state. There just doesn't seem to be any other way to say it.
Morgan stated that he focused the narrative on the characters' battles with authority, displaying images of brutal police force and the invasion of militaristic vehicles and weapons. By doing this, Morgan crafted this story on courage and honour and the refusal to be silenced, themes that he believed would resonate with a broader audience. By emphasising the police brutality, the film resonates to contemporary audiences. We can see these actions implemented within responses to Occupy Wall Street. The film questions the autocratic nature that can filter from these men in uniforms. The Stanford Prison Experiment in 1971, a study upon the psychological effects of a relationship between prisoners and guards, can help explain these actions. Dramatically reconstructed in a film adaptation in 2015, the study found that these volunteers extensively acted out these power dynamics, illustrating the power of authority. Morgan's film directly embodies the abuse of power from both a police state and judicial force.
Police brutality was responsible for the violence that caused the Haymarket trial. Protests in the streets of Chicago on May 3, 1886 were initially made in response to the killing of several workers by the Chicago police force. The next day, when a bomb was thrown at the police, the blast and ensuing gunfire resulted in the deaths of 7 police officers and at least 4 civilians. In response to the shootings, 8 anarchists and 4 civilians were convicted of conspiracy. As anarchist Lucy Parsons asserts in I Am an Anarchist, no protester should have been tried at court because it was the police who agitated the situation. Police brutality in the Haymarket trial is indistinguishable to the violence used against 15,000 protesters who rallied in Grant Park. While the use of tear gas, verbal and physical confrontation by the police is less violent than the firing of weapons at Haymarket, both incidents highlight police brutality as a means to contain protest. In both the Chicago riots and the Haymarket protests, the comparison of police brutality is evident. It raises the issue to what extent are police used to protect the civilian population or maintain the structure of the state.
In his recent study of the riots of '68, David Cush argues that overall police behaviour was not out of control, but rather a measured and controlled uniform pattern of force and violence that was tactically sanctioned by Mayor Daley prior to the convention. His comments suggest that police are a powerful arm of the state that are used tactically to crush revolution and protest. This certainly makes urban revolution more difficult. While we have the right to protest, as the examples show, a pervasive and aggressive police force dictate the extent to which we can obtain our rights to the city.